Welcome to Determined to Succeed. I'm your host, Dawn, also known as the Unique Connector. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today. And I'm going to kick it off today with asking you a question about a pivotal moment that you've had kind of in your life where you've kind of been having a plan, but it's really something was thrown at you and the plan had to go in a little bit quicker than maybe what you had planned. So if you want to talk about that scenario in your life.
I worked for a school district for mm, 14 years. And while I was working for the school district, I supplemented income because I just had an itch. I knew I was kind of like an entrepreneur, but I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do. So I was what they call a virtual assistant, and I supplemented income. And I wanted to quit my job, but I was the health insurance carrier. Well, come 2020, I was laid off.
Mm,
So it gave me the aha moment. You know what? It might be time just to go full time into my business. So that I would say was a huge pivotal moment. Um, it, I was just kind of pushed into it, and it was a different. It was different than what I have had ever expected because so many people came into my life or onto my path at that time that I needed. So it was not a. I didn't. I swam. I didn't sink when
mm,
I was pushed into the water that year. Um, and I'm still on that journey of being um, that full time entrepreneur. And it's not easy. Never being an entrepreneur is easy, but I love who I help. And yeah, so I guess that's my answer is that's when I was hit and I had to move in a direction that I never thought I would.
And I was going to say, I can't imagine, too. That's the one thing about, a company. You never know. Changes can happen. People are laid off at an instant. And so, not that we all have to have a game plan ready, but, what were some things that you were glad you maybe even had in place so you could get up and start swimming, as you said earlier?
Well, and I was lucky enough, it was during COVID and, like, unemployment, normally when you had to go out and search for a job, you had, I don't know, usually like 3 months or something like that. Because I wanted to do my own business, I was kind of freaking out because 'cause I'm like, "I don't really wanna go back and get another job," but it allowed me 6 months to just transition into my full-time business, so that was a godsend, um, in my opinion. Um, and then some of the other things that I did when I built my business is I saved up 6 months worth of savings in case it happened to me. Again, my business actually potentially went under stagnant. So I saved that up. Just trying to think. And maybe networking, kind of like what you do. It's just always making sure that I have people in my path. Um, so when one client goes off, another one came on. And that was a thing. I had done the virtual assistants I've done it now for 17, 18 years. And I have always had at least one client, if not more. So I feel like really God does provide. And there, there's a reason behind that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, I think that's the one thing that I keep trying to, educate other people about is even though your role isn't one where you're supposed to be out networking or getting new leads or sales, you should always be networking because you never know who you might need to lean on in the future. Or two, in this kind of case, you never know if all of a sudden you're going to lose your job and you're going to have to start a business or you're going to have to find a new job. Networking is really pivotal in, of course, building relationships, getting new knowledge, getting new experiences, but you never know when you can lean on those people. Because, as they say with new job opportunities too, the more you know about, like, the more you people have in your network, like it's easier with a warm introduction to get a job or to get a client. And so I'm glad to hear that you were networking in the past. And, your business has evolved. Things have happened, life, and I guess too, now you kind of been thrown even another curveball in your life.
other pivotal moment is this year I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I did a double mastectomy this spring, and I knew I was going to be off for a good 6 weeks. But I felt like I could serve my clients because I work from home, and my clients were kind enough to, give me the space that I needed. And then I found out that I ended up needing to go through chemotherapy this summer. So I knew that was even a longer period of time. So most of my clients, I did end up letting one of them go, but they have been, they've just been working with me to try to make myself help myself get healthier. However, it's easier said than done. I'm kind of like in the middle of the storm where it's like, I don't know where my house is going to land. And it worries me. And that's where I just have to, you know, let, let my faith be faith over fear. I just have to let it happen and what is meant to be and continue to communicate and network with the people that I have. So, yeah, having breast cancer and running a business isn't, well, actually, it's not easy no matter where you're at to have that breast cancer because I, I do continue to work and I've heard a lot of people that do work. But we have our days where it's just like, it's hard to get up.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you're going through that, and I think that's the part of life too, all these unexpected things that we're never going to know when the curveball is going to be thrown at us. And, it's unfortunate of just our bodies and things and cancer and all the things that can happen to us these days. So, even for you, as you're going through this process, you're running a business, you're not working, you're doing the things, trying to just even take time for yourself. What's even something for a listener that maybe they haven't hit that point yet, but maybe even to like words of wisdom that maybe you wish you would have even thought of beforehand that you're kind of implementing into your life now?
Well, it's interesting you say one of my clients, I actually help organize a writer's retreat for people that want to write. And actually, writing is part of grieving.
Mm.
And I had to laugh because it's gone on for 3 years now. And the first time I met with the writers, I had told them, I said, I'm not an author, nor do I want to be. And I said, I'm actually not a reader. And at that point, I didn't say I didn't want to be, but I said, I'm just not a reader.
Yeah.
Well, it was like 6 months, or it was the second retreat, and one of the authors had a book that I picked up, and I read her book. And ever since then, I read books, and that's my relief time.
Yeah.
Like in the mornings, I'll read kind of a self development, self help, and then in the evening, I read for fun, and I read a novel. And I think timing is everything, and I don't think there's certain times where you're just too tired to read, but that has been my um, help is to just sit down and read. It's just 2 chapters a day. But so that would be find that one thing, and whether it's fishing or whether it's crafting or whatever, find that one thing before before it's too late. Thank God I had that reading in place because that's what I've used as my crutch.
Mhm. Yeah. And I would say sometimes those things that maybe we've been avoiding or we didn't know we had an interest in, it's sometimes too just taking that opportunity to give yourself some time to focus in on something. Cause I think that's the thing with life. We get so busy with work and trying to do it all that sometimes it's the little things that can really actually go a long way. And it's funny that you say that because I wasn't really ever a reader. And I think because my sister was always the reader. So I was always the like girl out fishing and doing all the things. And the older I've gotten, I'm like, man, I've been missing out. I love reading. And I love doing it. What started it was reading to my son every night when he was a baby. And now it's just flourished. And he's a big reader too, where I'm like, huh, it's silly how I avoided this all growing up.
And the other thing is podcast. Years or before I was said I'd listen to a podcast over a book, and I mean they've got audiobooks too, but even a podcast, if you can find that niche of a podcast to listen to get your mind away from life, I think that would be my right. my advice or my suggestion is just find that something
Mm.
that you can relieve yourself.
Yeah, relieve yourself. And I was going to say, for even for you, with jumping into this business and doing the thing on your own, you're working with a lot of people closely. What are some things that you're even seeing with businesses of why they should be also thinking outside the box and why maybe sometimes they should be hiring somebody like you, or two, not hiring someone full time on their team, but hiring someone like you as a consultant?
Well, obviously, the first thing is expense wise. I mean, it's easier to contract somebody than have that employee expense. That's you know one one thing. The other thing is I do work on project based, so whether they maybe have a 6 month project versus a need somebody for a long period of time. That's one reason. And it's just honestly sometimes it's the more personable. I when I get on a call, I always get on a call prior to accepting a client because you connect or you don't connect, and that's the one thing with my clients. I feel like I'm behind their mission and their values. So I think that's key too, is just making sure that you connect and can support each other and actually grow with each other. Because it's been neat because most of the clients that I've worked with started really right about the same time I did, but I've helped them grow into their business and expand. So
Mm.
it's been a really cool feeling.
Yeah. Well, I was like 18 years. That's a lot, and I think that's where you have a lot of knowledge and experience and, wisdom that, other business owners should be thinking about and think differently. It's unfortunate, what you're dealing with now too, but just how to maybe even have a plan in case of things like this when you are an entrepreneur. What are some things that maybe they should be thinking about? That, of course, hiring outside is great, sometimes to bring in even new creative juices, or, someone that's never even been in your industry. And that's where I think consulting wise is really helpful for a lot of businesses. But then also, too, just helping them think outside the box of planning of you never know if something will happen, or two, an employee might not show up tomorrow. It's all those
Right.
things too, all the unknowns. And so, how do you keep staying determined with all the unknowns in life and keep pushing ahead?
And I think it's the community support, and like even during my cancer, the community has been behind me more than the healthcare system, unfortunately. Um, but even when you have your business, they actually, I've heard in the past, they say don't tell or don't talk to your family about it because your family doesn't necessarily understand what you're doing. Get that network or that community support from other business owners. That's where your support can come in. And I mentioned that earlier on our conversation before we started here. When I had my surgery, one of the other things I had done is I had a list of my clients and I had given it to my business coach before my surgery. And I just said, just in case something were to happen to me, I just want somebody else to be able to contact my clients besides my husband. Cause I think my husband would have a little bit too much going on. So that's another way that I just kind of got myself in order, just in case things would happen. And it's not a bad thing to have somebody else have a list of your clients, just as a backup plan, so you don't ghost them. you know. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Or add more stress onto the family. It kind of just makes me think of too. So when I was in wealth management, I was working with a lot of families and loss and all the things. And I think that's the thing. No matter if you're battling cancer or doing some things, you should have a game plan in case something were to happen when it comes to your business. It's kind of why POA docs are really important, even too, just in normal life. So someone can handle, your finances for you as well as your health choices. But when it comes to business, I think sometimes we forget that when you're on your own, and you don't have a team behind you, but having that game plan. And so I hope even too, the listeners are it's maybe getting the wheels going a little bit for them of, oh yeah, does anybody know who I'm even working with? Does anybody know where the stuff is? Um, I'm coming up with a plan because who knows? Something could fall from the sky today and hit me, or I could get hit by that bus. And I always say that with some of my clients too, of like why I connect them with certain programs so they know where I was at in the stages. Um, but I appreciate that reminder for us all because no matter what, I think we should always be thinking of that.
And even giving your clients a backup contact um, is not a bad thing either. You know, during surgery or right before surgery, I said, here is my husband contact. But if I remember right, I did give him my business consultant's name too. So
Okay. Mm, mm. Well, I think that's the thing too is, negatives sometimes can bring positives. What are some other things that maybe you can quick think of that have been positive for you? I know you're going through a lot right now.
mhm. Well, I think it really comes. I'm so amazed at the people that have come onto my path. And some of them I haven't necessarily even worked with, but I don't know where it's going to lead me. And it kind of going back way back when my second client, it was a he must have been 72, 73 years old, and he had contacted me because he knew I was a virtual assistant. Well, at that time I subcontracted and I didn't have the so-called confidence to go on my own. So I said, well, here's her number. Get a hold of her, and then I would just subcontract. Well, it was a year later. The guy called me back and he goes, no, he says, I want you. Um, and I'm like, oh, okay. So he hired me on or he contracted me on for whatever. And I had him for a client for a long time, but that guy, I mean, he's passed away now, but he was just a wealth of knowledge. And there again, he came onto my path, but it was a year later before he contacted me again. So people come into my path for reasons. And if you allow it to happen, it can and it will in some way or another.
Mm, I love that, just how you're thinking of things. And I, as you're saying that, I'm kind of giggling to myself of like, this is the first time we've even met and we hit record even today. But I think that's the point of life though, too. It's so short that we need to embrace who we get an opportunity to meet. You never know what can come out of it. It's not all about sales or, the next prospect or this or that. It's about getting more knowledge and experience and having support and finding resources for each other. And that's the part that I'm glad and I felt like there was a reason that we needed to meet. Nancy mentioned your name and then you just kind of kept popping up in my social media and I thought, okay, there's a reason. Let's connect. And so I think that's the cool part too of when you get to meet people, like be curious, see what you can learn about each other. And you don't have to be so bold like me and just hit record, but some people do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's okay too, because either you hit it off or you don't hit it off. And um, yeah. So you
Mm,
just never know where that connection might take you.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much and being on the show and talking about your journey. I know that too. It's not always easy for everybody to talk about your experience or to share. So I appreciate you because you're giving me even just another perspective and to be thinking wiser and, you know, the unexpected. But there can always be, light at the end of the tunnel too, though. So I appreciate
And the other thing I would like to share though too is I had somebody else that had cancer prior to this. And the one thing I've learned is it's okay to tell people, and you need to tell people if you want people to even pray or think about you, you got to tell them what's going on because they're
it.
not going to be able to, they can't read your mind. And that was the one thing that I had put a post out. And I didn't want it to sound like, look at me, but I truly did want people to pray for me. But I told them, and I think that's is how I've gotten through things too, is people are praying for me, but it's because I told them.
Yeah.
So it's okay to sometimes share things with people.
Yeah, well, that's a great reminder because I know, a lot of people that I know of, even sometimes myself too. It's a hard point of what do you share, what do you not share? Am I coming across big-headed, too confident, like too proud, or is this too? I want somebody to know what's going on, and I think that's the beauty also too of how we're so connected with people too with social media and all the things. But how can you really embrace it also too to go through it? Not alone. So I'm proud of you for talking about it and know you're not alone and I'm thinking of you and thankful we met and we're going to meet in person one of these days, but I appreciate you and keep shining bright and know that the listeners like I hope you got some things to think about and just I appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Mm.